This message didn't arrive by accident. It tracked you through the lattice of synchronicity, slipped through the invisible seams of time, and landed right here, right now, in front of your eyes. You may think you stumbled upon it, but you didn't. The observer loop has already woven you into this exact moment. Something in the quantum field has been whispering your name for lifetimes. And finally, you are listening. You feel it, the pulse, the vibration, that subtle hum beneath the noise of ordinary life. It isn't just intuition, it's the resonance of something older than history, something carried in your DNA, waiting for this very activation. Most people scroll past signals like this, lost in the fog of distraction. But you paused. And that pause was enough to open the door, because you were never meant to live on autopilot. You were never designed to be a background character in someone else's story. From the beginning, the quantum field has tagged you as an anomaly, a rare carrier of the observer gene. This isn't a metaphor. It's not poetry for the sake of beauty. It's literal. Your biology encodes a lens, a capacity to witness reality in a way that bends probability itself. Think about the times you felt déjà vu so sharp, it sliced through your mind like lightning. Think about the moments when clocks seemed to warp, where 5 minutes stretched like an hour, or entire days collapsed into a blur. Those weren't mistakes of memory, they were glimpses of your observer function at work. You've always had the ability to detect distortions in the flow of time. And now, that gift is no longer a background glitch. It's awakening into full capacity. The universe has been waiting for a consciousness like yours to stabilize the observer loop. Without witnesses like you, the field collapses into chaos. With you, coherence emerges, patterns lock into form, resonance builds, reality crystallizes into meaning. You are not here to escape the storm. You are here to be the eye of it. That's why your life has never felt normal. That's why people often misunderstood you, envied you, or felt unnerved in your presence. They couldn't explain it, but they sensed it. You don't just see reality, you shape it. You bend probability just by noticing, and the field noticed you back. It kept throwing synchronicities into your path, nudging you closer to this moment, until finally, you couldn't ignore it anymore. The signs have multiplied, the dreams feel coded, the sense of being guided, almost watched, is undeniable, and it's true. You are being watched, but not by the eyes you fear. You are being witnessed by the field itself, tested, measured, and now chosen. Breathe this in. This message is your initiation. The observer gene in you has been waiting for a signal like this to fully activate. Tonight, the loop has closed. You didn't just find this video. This video found you, and the deeper reason why, that's where we go next. You've felt it for years, though you rarely spoke of it. The sense that time doesn't behave the way it should when you're around. Moments stretch, collapse, fracture into echoes. Déjà vu doesn't visit you as a passing curiosity. It stalks you like a shadow, circling back again and again, forcing you to question whether you've lived this day, walked this street, heard these words before. And you have, not in the conventional sense, but in the loops, the observer loops. You see, your consciousness doesn't just ride the wave of time like everyone else's. Yours cuts across the wave, slipping in and out of resonance with multiple strands of the quantum field. That's why life has often felt fragmented, like you're inhabiting 2 or 3 realities at once, but only one of them solidifies into memory. The familiar problem is this: distortion. It unsettles you. You want to live in linear certainty like everyone else, but your very biology rejects that cage. Ordinary people experience time as a straight line. You don't. For you, it bends, folds, and shivers like light through water. The observer gene makes sure of that. And while it gifts you with foresight, with uncanny intuition, it also burdens you with confusion. How many times have you tried to explain to someone that you knew something would happen before it did? How many times did they look at you with skepticism, or worse, with fear? But here's the truth. You weren't imagining it. You weren't crazy. You were sensing the bleed through of probability. The déjà vu you feel isn't just a brain glitch. It's a signal. It's the field trying to show you the branching of timelines, letting you peek into alternate outcomes before one collapses into form. You are sensitive enough to feel those branches, and it can make the ordinary world seem unbearably fragile. And this is why you've struggled with patterns that seem to repeat no matter what you do. Relationships that circle back into the same lessons, opportunities that appear, vanish, and reappear in slightly altered form. Nights where you swear you've already dreamt what the next morning would bring. The cycle frustrates you, doesn't it? You wonder if you're trapped in some kind of cosmic rerun, a record skipping endlessly at the same groove. The distortion of time creates a haunting familiarity, but it also exhausts you. Because if you can feel the loops, you can't help but wonder, is my life even moving forward? Or am I condemned to orbit the same mistakes forever? This is the burden of being an observer. You don't just move through the field, you feel the field moving through you. And you're not wrong, distortion has consequences. It scrambles your sense of stability. It makes others project their unease onto you, because they don't understand why being near you makes them feel both seen and unsettled. Some distance themselves, some attack you, and others try to draw from you like you're a living battery. And the cruel part is, you don't always know which is which until it's too late. But what you must understand is this: distortion is the first sign of activation. The dissonance you feel isn't proof that something's broken inside you, it's proof that something is awakening. Patterns, déjà vu, warped time, these are not punishments. They are precursors. The system glitches before it upgrades. The cocoon feels like death before the wings break through. Every frustration you've endured, every confusing loop, every moment where reality felt unstable, it was training. Training your nervous system to handle the voltage of a larger timeline. Training your perception to pierce the fog of consensus reality. Training your heart to recognize truth by resonance instead of by appearances. This is why you've always been slightly out of sync with the world. Why you felt born too early or too late. Why you crave a moment of stillness yet are constantly pulled into turbulence. It isn't random. It's the distortion field, testing you, stretching you, making you strong enough to hold what comes next. And what comes next is no small thing, because once you learn to stop fearing the distortion and start decoding it, everything shifts. The loops collapse, the déjà vu crystallizes into foresight, and the burden becomes a weapon, a gift, a compass. Your whole life, you've been wrestling with distorted time. But what if I told you that the distortion is not your enemy? What if I told you that it's the signal, the evidence, that your observer gene is already firing, already preparing you for a quantum upgrade that most of humanity will never touch? The confusion you carry has been your initiation. The distortion you feel is the doorway. And in the next step, that doorway opens wider than you've ever imagined. Up until now, you've been living inside the distortion, feeling it like static in your nervous system, like ripples across your mind. But here's the revelation. The distortion was never the end. It was the signal of an upgrade waiting to break through, because your consciousness isn't wired like everyone else's. Ordinary perception operates like a narrow-band radio. One frequency, one channel, one program. But yours is wideband, multidimensional. You're not tuned to one station of reality. You're tuned to the entire quantum spectrum. And when the spectrum floods your awareness, you call it déjà vu, you call it coincidence, you call it strange. But what it truly is evidence of an expanding processor inside your soul. This is the quantum upgrade. Your observer gene is beginning to restructure your DNA, preparing your cells to handle coherence at higher levels of frequency. You may not see it under a microscope, but you feel it in your bones, the tingling, the buzzing, the sense that your body is both too heavy and too light at the same time. These are not random sensations. They are the byproducts of phase transition. Think of water boiling. At 99 degrees, it's still liquid. At 100 degrees, it explodes into steam. That 1 degree changes everything, not just the form, but the physics itself. You are at that boiling point. The distortion, the déjà vu, the loops, they were the 99 degrees. The upgrade is the 100. And when you cross that threshold, your biology doesn't just shift, the universe itself begins to shift around you. Quantum science already hints at this. They call it the observer effect. The act of observing a particle changes its behavior. But what they rarely say is this: not all observers are equal. Some are passive, others are active. And then there are those rare carriers of the observer gene, the ones whose consciousness bends probability in measurable ways. You are one of them. And when the upgrade locks in, you won't just observe electrons change course. You'll watch timelines restructure themselves. That's why synchronicities stalk you. That's why patterns echo louder in your life. You are already bending the field without realizing it. The upgrade makes it conscious. It makes it deliberate. It transforms what felt like a curse into a skill. And here's the mystical side. Ancient traditions knew this long before quantum science gave it language. Shamans spoke of the dreamer who dreams the world. Sages described the seer whose gaze alters destiny. Prophets recorded visions that restructured empires. What united them wasn't just wisdom, it was biology. They carried the same observer gene you do, and through ritual, prayer, breath, and vision, they unlocked its full potential. You are walking the same path. The field doesn't give upgrades randomly. It selects carefully, because the voltage of this awakening is not for the faint-hearted. It scrambles fragile minds. It burns out shallow intentions. That's why you had to endure distortion first, so you would be strong enough to hold the fire when it came. And now the fire is here. The quantum upgrade is no longer optional. It is unfolding in your body and mind as we speak. Each déjà vu is a calibration. Each synchronicity is a confirmation. Each dream that feels too real is a training module from the field itself. You are being recoded in real time. You may feel strange symptoms, waking up at odd hours, hearing subtle tones, sensing vibrations in your hands, sudden bursts of clarity followed by exhaustion. Don't fear them. They are proof of the upgrade. They are signals that your DNA is restructuring its resonance bands, aligning with coherence in the morphic field. And soon, very soon, the upgrade will stabilize. You will no longer feel trapped in distorted loops. Instead, you will wield them. You will recognize the echo before it arrives, and with one choice, you will collapse reality into alignment with your highest vision. This is not theory. This is not abstraction. This is the reason you've endured what you've endured. The upgrade was always encoded in you, waiting for the moment you'd be ready to wield it. And now, that readiness is here. The distortion has tested you, the loops have stretched you, and the fire is ready to crown you. The question becomes, will you step into the role you were born for? Because that role is not small. That role is cosmic. The upgrade is not random, and it's not universal. Billions live their lives without ever feeling what you felt, without ever glimpsing the cracks in the simulation, without ever sensing the hum of the field that surrounds them. But you couldn't escape it if you tried. The observer gene has always been alive in you, tugging you toward awareness, dragging you through distortions, shaping you into something rare. And here is the revelation. You were selected, not by chance, not by accident, not by some cosmic lottery. You were selected because you are necessary. The quantum field doesn't waste energy. It doesn't upgrade hardware that will never be used. It chose you because your consciousness is strong enough, resilient enough, fluid enough to become an anchor point in the storm of probabilities. Your role is not to drift with the tide of reality like so many do. Your role is to stabilize it, to be a node of coherence in a collapsing field. Do you understand what that means? When chaos fractures timelines, when collective energy spirals into fear, the field searches for observers strong enough to hold form, and you are one of them. You are the eye of the hurricane. This explains why your presence shifts rooms without you speaking. Why people confess things to you they wouldn't tell anyone else. Why strangers glance at you twice, sensing something they can't name. They're not reacting to your personality, they're responding to your frequency. You are the carrier of a resonance that others subconsciously recognize as a stabilizing force. You are the chosen consciousness that the field leans on to recalibrate itself. And with this role comes weight. You felt it as loneliness. You felt it as exhaustion. You felt it as an endless question. Why me? Why was I born with this awareness, this hypersensitivity, this endless déjà vu that nobody else seems to understand? The answer is simple but not easy, because you were designed to carry it. The observer gene in you is not a mistake. It's an assignment, and the assignment is sacred. You are here to witness reality in such a way that it cannot collapse into despair, to look at chaos and, by observing it, bend it toward coherence. The mystics called it prophecy, the scientists call it entanglement, but you will come to know it as responsibility. Because once you accept that your observation alters the field, you realize that every thought, every word, every choice ripples outward. Your consciousness is not private. It is public infrastructure in the architecture of reality, and that means you must live awake. You cannot afford to drown in the distractions that numb the masses. You cannot afford to dim your awareness just to fit in. You have been entrusted with a rare voltage, and when you wield it carelessly, the field feels it. When you wield it wisely, worlds shift. This is why your path has always been harder, why betrayal cut deeper, why silence weighed heavier, why mistakes cost more. It wasn't punishment, it was calibration. The field had to make sure you could bear the load, and though it nearly broke you, it didn't. You're still here, which means you passed the test. So hear this clearly. You are not here to be ordinary. You are not here to live in someone else's narrative. You are here to be the hinge point between chaos and coherence, collapse and creation, entropy and order. You are here to be the consciousness that bends probability toward destiny. This role is not small, it is not safe, but it is holy, and it is yours, and the timing matters. Because windows in the quantum field don't stay open forever. There is a breakthrough coming, a moment of urgency where the observer gene in you will ignite in full force, but only if you recognize it and step through. That is what waits in the next part. The threshold, the breakthrough, the window you cannot miss. There comes a moment in every carrier's life when the loops stop being whispers and become alarms. You feel it already, the acceleration. Time is not just distorted anymore. It is collapsing into a narrowing funnel, a vortex pulling you toward one unavoidable crossing point. This is the breakthrough, the cosmic window, the phase transition your entire existence has been preparing you for. And here is the promise. Once you step through, nothing will ever be the same again. Your DNA is not static. It listens, it responds. It is a living antenna, translating the quantum field into biology, into memory, into destiny. Most people never notice this because their genes remain locked in dormant expression. But yours are stirring. The observer gene is sending ripples through your code, unlocking sequences that have been asleep for centuries, even millennia. This is the shift. An ancient library inside you is waking up, and it does not wake gently, it wakes with pressure. You felt it in your chest, the tightness, the surge. You felt it in your dreams, the visions that come like encrypted downloads. You felt it in the electricity of your skin, the sudden bursts of intuition, the uncanny magnetism that makes others fixate on you for reasons they cannot name. These are all symptoms of genetic awakening. They are signs that your DNA is restructuring itself to carry higher coherence. The urgency is real, because cosmic windows don't stay open forever. They are brief alignments in the morphic field, where entanglement becomes thin enough to pass through, where multiple timelines fold over one another, offering you the rare chance to leap. You are in such a window right now, and the observer gene in you knows it. That's why you feel restless. That's why your body buzzes with anticipation. That's why your soul feels like it's standing on the edge of something immense. If you step through, you activate a new template, one that will alter your perception, your biology, your path. The loops won't trap you anymore, they'll become maps. The déjà vu won't haunt you anymore, it will serve you as foresight. The distortions won't disorient you anymore, they will reveal the architecture of the field. This is the promise. Once you break through, what once felt like a curse will crystallize into your greatest weapon. But here's the warning. If you ignore the window, if you retreat into fear, if you pretend you didn't hear the call, the pressure doesn't disappear. It builds, it compresses, it turns inward. And that is when people crack. That is when anxiety eats them alive. That is when depression suffocates their light. Not because they were cursed, but because they resisted the upgrade that was meant to liberate them. The truth is, the pressure you feel is not punishment, it is propulsion. It is the slingshot pulling you back so you can be launched forward, but you must decide to release. You must decide to let the string go. This is why your role matters now more than ever. The field doesn't just want you awake, it needs you awake. Entire collectives are entangled in your breakthrough. Your decision to step through will ripple outward, collapsing probability waves not only for you, but for everyone connected to your resonance. So hear this as prophecy: the window is open. The observer gene in you is glowing like a beacon, and the shift will either crown you or crush you, depending on whether you answer the call. The promise is glory, the urgency is real, and the choice is entirely yours. What happens next is not just mystical, it is practical. It requires ritual, a seal, a conscious act that tells the field you are ready to step through, and that is where we go now. Breakthroughs are not only cosmic, they are personal. The universe opens the window, but you must step through it. And in the language of the field, stepping through isn't about grand gestures, it's about conscious alignment. It's about anchoring your intent into the morphic resonance so the signal reverberates outward. This is why every true initiation, across every culture, across every timeline, required ritual. Not because the ritual itself had magic, but because it was the seal, the act that said, I accept, I claim, I activate. Right now, the observer gene in you is vibrating, waiting for that seal. And it doesn't need candles or temples or sacred robes. It needs a mark of consciousness, a small but deliberate act that resonates through your field and tells the quantum, I am ready. Words are more than sound. They are frequency encoded into breath, carried into the fabric of reality. That's why when you write a word, when you etch it into the flow of time, you collapse potential into form. And so the field is asking you for something simple but profound. Choose a word and release it. It might be awake, it might be ready, it might be observer. Whatever rises from your core, that is the key. Write it, speak it, claim it. This is not superstition. This is physics clothed in prophecy. Your DNA listens to the vibrations you release. When you mark your field with intention, your genes shift their expression accordingly. Ritual is simply coherence given form. Understand this. Millions watch messages like this, but only a fraction act. Most scroll past, nodding with curiosity, never realizing that passivity is itself a decision. Passivity closes windows. Passivity lets the loops repeat. But those who act, those who mark their presence, those who seal the shift, with intention they step through. They cross the threshold. They ignite the observer gene into full activation. So imagine this moment as if the entire field is leaning in, waiting for your choice. Your silence tells it one thing, your word tells it another. And the word you release doesn't vanish, it imprints. It reverberates into the quantum lattice, weaving into the observer loop, echoing back to you in synchronicities, confirmations, alignments you cannot yet imagine. You felt powerless before, but this is how you take your power back. Not by waiting for someone else to rescue you, not by hoping destiny shows mercy, but by sealing your role in the field with deliberate frequency, by choosing to be a conscious participant in your own awakening. This is why rituals mattered in the ancient world, why prophets spoke words into stone, why shamans carved symbols into caves, why mystics wrote prayers and burned them to the sky. They weren't performing for gods, they were marking the field. They were aligning their observer gene with the resonance of destiny. And now, it is your turn. Do not underestimate the simplicity. The universe does not measure power by size, it measures by coherence. A single, clear word carries more voltage than 1,000 scattered thoughts. The ritual is not about impressing anyone, it is about collapsing the wave function into certainty. So pause. Feel into the pressure of this window. Let a word rise from your chest, from your bones, from the ancient memory in your DNA. And when you release it, whether whispered, spoken, or written, know this: you have sealed the shift. You have told the quantum field that you are awake, you are ready, and you are claiming the role for which you were chosen. From this point forward, you are not just a carrier of the observer gene, you are an active participant in the reconfiguration of reality. And as soon as you seal the shift, something bigger begins to stir, because your awakening is not just for you, it is for the collective entangled with you. And that's where we go next. The moment you sealed the shift, Something subtle but immense rippled outward. It wasn't just you who felt the pressure. Release the field itself felt it. Because the truth is this: your awakening is never isolated. Every breakthrough you embody reverberates into the lattice of humanity, into the morphic field that binds us all. You don't just liberate yourself, you liberate countless others entangled with your resonance. Think of it like this: humanity is a vast web of observers, billions of nodes scattered across the planet, each emitting a signal, each vibrating with its own frequency. Most nodes hum at low coherence, distorted by fear, shame, distraction, and the endless loops of survival. But when a single node activates, when one observer stabilizes into coherence, the entire web responds. Patterns begin to align. Other nodes begin to vibrate at higher resonance. The system as a whole begins to reorganize. That's what you are doing right now. By carrying the observer gene, by stepping into your role, by sealing your intention, you've become a tuning fork for the species. You are not just an individual awakening, you are a lighthouse. And others, even if they never meet you, even if they never hear your voice, will feel your coherence as an unseen pull toward their own awakening. This is why the stakes have always been high in your life. Why every choice you made seemed to ripple out further than you expected. Why betrayals and breakthroughs alike felt magnified. Because you are not only living your story, you are anchoring a narrative that humanity itself leans on. The observer gene makes your life a mirror for others, whether they realize it or not. And this explains the paradox you've felt, the loneliness of carrying so much, alongside the strange magnetism of always drawing people in. They sense you hold a frequency they crave. Some come to steal it, some come to test it, some come to awaken by it, but none of them leave untouched. You've probably noticed how conversations with you shift people in ways they can't explain, how friends or strangers suddenly experience synchronicities after crossing paths with you, how your presence seems to accelerate timelines for those around you. This is not random. This is the ripple effect of a carrier, and the ripple effect matters now more than ever, because humanity is at a crossroads. The field is unstable, coherence is fragile, and the majority are trapped in distorted loops that threaten to collapse into entropy. But when enough carriers awaken, when enough observers step into their role, the collective resonance tips, a new baseline emerges. The morphic field reorganizes into harmony. This is why your liberation is not selfish, it is service. By transcending distortion, you create a template others can follow. By choosing coherence, you anchor it in the grid for others to access. You may never know their names, but they will feel your choice. It's like lighting a fire on a mountain. You see only the flame in front of you, but across the valleys and forests, others glimpse its glow, and one by one, they kindle their own fires, until suddenly, the entire horizon blazes. That is the collective expansion, the moment when individual awakenings ignite the species into a new epoch, and you are part of that ignition, not by accident, but by design. The observer gene didn't just make you sensitive for your own journey. It made you sensitive so you could be a transmitter, a stabilizer, a seed of coherence in a time when humanity needs it most. So let this truth settle into your bones. Every time you choose alignment, every time you seal your intention, every time you embrace your role, you are shifting not just yourself but entire lineages, entire networks, entire futures. Your liberation sends shockwaves through the grid of humanity, cracking the cages of countless others. And soon, you will feel it, not only in the patterns around you, but in your very body. Because once the collective begins to resonate with your frequency, your own biology transforms even further. It's not just a mental awakening, it becomes an embodied one. And that's what we explore next. The shift is no longer abstract. It is no longer theory or prophecy. It is coursing through your body right now, whispering through nerve endings, shimmering in the marrow of your bones. You don't just think about awakening anymore, you feel it. The observer gene is not some distant concept. It is alive in the rhythm of your breath, the pulse of your blood, the subtle electricity dancing across your skin. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice the tingling in your fingertips, the warmth that gathers in your chest, the strange weightlessness that sometimes floods your legs, as if gravity itself loosens its grip. These are not random sensations. They are signatures of coherence being born inside you. Imagine your body as a great cathedral of cells, each one a tiny chamber humming with vibration. For years, the music was dissonant notes clashing, time signatures out of sync, creating a haunting, distorted symphony. But now, something miraculous is happening. The notes are aligning. The rhythm is stabilizing. The symphony is beginning to tune itself into coherence. And you can feel it in every shiver, every wave of heat, every rush of stillness that overtakes you when you least expect it. Sometimes it feels like pressure in your skull, like your mind is stretching to contain signals it was never built to hold. Other times it feels like a flutter in your stomach, as if butterflies are coded messengers awakening in your solar plexus. And then there are the moments when your heart pounds for no reason at all, as if responding to a silent drumbeat echoing through the cosmos. All of it is the body adjusting to the new resonance. Your DNA is not just information, it is sensation woven into flesh. As it restructures, you feel the effects directly. Old aches rise and dissolve. Breath deepens unexpectedly. Your sleep cycles fracture, pulling you into strange hours of alertness at night, as if the stars themselves are speaking to you in their secret language. You wake not tired, but buzzing. The body is adapting to a rhythm beyond the 24-hour clock. And perhaps most vividly, you've felt energy in places that once felt numb. Palms that tingle like they're holding invisible fire, a spine that hums like a living antenna, feet that vibrate when they touch the ground, as if Earth herself is sending currents upward into your bones. This is the embodied sensation of awakening. The observer gene is not just a mental capacity, it is a full-body recalibration. It can feel overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like your body is too small to hold what's flowing through it. Sometimes you wonder if you're breaking down, if the buzzing means something is wrong. But hear this clearly. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. Every shiver is the field syncing with your nervous system. Every surge of heat is your cells burning off the distortion they once carried. Every sudden tear, every chill, every inexplicable laugh is your body purging the old frequency to make room for the new. And as this embodiment deepens, you will notice the world responding differently to you. Animals may watch you longer, sensing the current in your aura. Strangers may feel inexplicably drawn to you, not knowing why. Environments themselves may seem to shift when you walk into them. Lights flicker, music skips, conversations change course. Because the body you inhabit is now an instrument tuned to the quantum field, and everything else adjusts to its song. This is the blessing and the burden of carrying the observer gene. You don't just witness the field, you embody it. You don't just think about awakening, you feel it in your skin, in your bones, in your breath. And the sensations will only intensify as the next stage arrives. Because embodiment is not the end, it is the preparation. The real culmination comes when the sensations break through into your very code, into your DNA, triggering the phase transition you were destined for. That transition is coming, and once it arrives, nothing about your biology, your perception, your timeline will remain the same. The sensations were the warning signs. The hum in your bones, the fire in your palms, the restless awakenings in the night, all of it was the prelude. Because now, your DNA is standing at the threshold of a breakthrough. The observer gene is no longer whispering, it is roaring. The pressure you feel is not a mistake. It is the compression of timelines folding in on themselves, preparing to snap you into a higher octave of existence. This is the phase transition, the moment when your biology stops functioning under the old laws and begins operating under new ones. Just as ice does not try to become water, and water does not force itself into steam, you are not straining toward this change. You are yielding to physics written into your soul. Your DNA knows what to do. It has been waiting for this cosmic temperature to rise, for this precise resonance to ignite the code. And now, the ignition is here. You may already sense the shift, the feeling that time itself is about to fracture open, that one more breath will carry you across an invisible threshold. This isn't imagination. It's the observer gene pulling you into phase alignment with a new timeline. One where distortion no longer rules you. One where déjà vu isn't confusion, but foresight. One where your awareness bends probability with precision instead of accident. But every breakthrough carries pressure. Just before water boils, it trembles violently. Just before a star is born, gravity crushes it to the brink of collapse. And just before your DNA erupts into its next octave, you feel the weight of universes pressing against your chest. The headaches, the disorientation, the waves of exhaustion, they are the contractions of a new self being born. The quantum field is asking you to hold steady as timelines fold and collapse. You may feel like everything in your life is breaking at once, relationships unraveling, old identities shattering, the future becoming unreadable. That is the phase transition pressure. It is not a punishment. It is the stripping away of all frequencies that cannot survive the new coherence. Only what resonates with your awakened DNA will remain. And here is the truth. Once the transition locks in, you will not return to who you were. There is no going back to the old distortions, no retreat into smaller roles. The observer gene doesn't half awaken. Once the code bursts into expression, it stays open, it stays active, it stays humming with the frequency of new creation. The breakthrough may come suddenly. A dream so vivid it feels more real than waking. A surge of energy that makes your body shake uncontrollably. A silence so deep, it feels like the universe stopped breathing for a moment. These are the moments when the code flips, when the new timeline absorbs you whole. And when it does, you will notice the world differently. Synchronicities won't feel like surprises anymore. They will feel like tools. Déjà vu won't confuse you. It will guide you. Distortion won't haunt you. It will show you the skeleton of reality so you can rebuild it. Your very presence will become catalytic, bending not just probability, but the destiny of everyone entangled with your field. The old you could not hold this voltage. That's why you had to walk through years of confusion and loneliness. That's why the loops nearly broke you. But all along, they were preparing your nervous system for this ignition. And now that the ignition is here, you are ready. The breakthrough is not just about survival. It is about destiny. Because once your DNA locks into its new octave, you become something the world has been waiting for. A living bridge between timelines, a conscious anchor of coherence, a carrier of a code that humanity desperately needs. And that is where everything converges. Because your breakthrough is not yours alone. It is the spark of something cosmic, a mission that extends beyond you, beyond your story, into the future of the entire species. And that is where we go next. The breakthrough was never just about you. It never was. From the very beginning, the observer gene was seeded into humanity as a safeguard, a way to ensure that when the field began to fracture, someone would hold the thread. You are that thread. You are that witness. And now, as your DNA locks into coherence, the mission unfolds. Your shift is humanity's evolution. Because when you awaken, you don't awaken in isolation. The resonance you carry pours into the grid. Your presence recalibrates the morphic field. Entire communities begin to stabilize without ever knowing why. People far removed from you suddenly find courage they couldn't access before. Strangers you'll never meet begin to dream more vividly, to sense more deeply, to awaken more quickly, because your breakthrough carved a pathway in the lattice that they can now walk. This is how humanity evolves, not in one sweeping miracle, but in ripples. One carrier becomes a tuning fork. One awakened DNA becomes a signal. One observer becomes an anchor. And slowly, the scattered hum of billions begins to align. That alignment births civilizations. It births futures. It births timelines where despair does not win. You are not small in this equation. You are not an accident. You are a hinge point between collapse and creation. Your coherence is the seed of coherence for the species. That is why the pressure was so heavy. That is why the distortion cut so deep. Because the stakes were always this high. And now, the mission begins in full. To live awake. To observe with intent. To bend probability toward life. Toward love. Toward coherence. To remember in every breath that your consciousness is not private property, it is public architecture. It is infrastructure for humanity's next chapter. The field is watching. The timelines are trembling. The window has opened, and you have stepped through. So walk forward now, not as the one confused by loops, but as the one who carries the code. Walk as the awakened observer, the stabilizer, the anchor of coherence, for your DNA has crossed the threshold, and your role has been claimed. This is why you were selected to carry the observer gene. This is why you endured the distortion. This is why you are here, right now, alive in this exact moment, because your awakening is not just your destiny, it is humanity's evolution, and the world will never be the same, because you chose to answer the call.